Hello, BookTube. I wanted to try to get back to Last Week in BookTube. I was doing it regularly. It's a feature on this channel where I look at the previous week on BookTube and just give you some of the highlights of videos that I really liked. Not meant to be comprehensive at all. I watch lots of BookTube videos, but I don't watch all of them. And I was clipping along doing that on a regular basis, week by week, and then the news here in America derailed me. There was no way that I could do a Last Week in BookTube with that news front and center, and there was no way to do it without that, so I just didn't do it. And as is the case in all things in life, when you don't do something, you gain momentum in not doing that something. So I thought I would get back to doing this, especially since you seem to enjoy it. I certainly enjoy taking stock. So I have a few things that I want to point out to you this time around. It'll probably be a shorter Last Week in BookTube video than most of them are. If there are short videos on this channel anymore, I don't know. Maybe there aren't. But of course, there were some big things last week. You going to try this? There you go. There were some big things on BookTube last week. It's NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, and it's gearing up towards the conclusion, so there are tons and tons of videos from people talking about NaNoWriMo, just describing their progress. Oz's videos, of course, get pride of place for me there because they've all been so good. I'll leave a link to all of this down below, but to hers as well, her NaNoWriMo videos. There was also Nonfiction November, a month-long event created and hosted by Gemma at Nonfic Books and Olive at A Book Olive, in which the goal is to read more nonfiction, which of course made it near and dear to my heart since I love nonfiction and read it all the time. And also last week there was another thing that sort of spread across a lot of channels, and that was the birth of AuthorTube, a spin-off to BookTube, really, a channel of its own, a community of its own, starring the writers on BookTube. And there was an AuthorTube newbie tag that, as far as I can tell, kind of went viral. Everybody that's interested in AuthorTube did it, I did it myself, and there were lots of others, and it was utterly fascinating to watch them all. And the other event that wasn't specific to BookTube, but of course it had seismic afterwaves on BookTube, and it will continue to, was the premiere of the movie Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, starring 2-pack-a-day tobacco addict Colin Farrell, 5-pack-a-day tobacco addict Ezra Miller, and 6-pack-a-day tobacco addict Eddie Redmayne. So this is probably the only Harry Potter series, spin-off series, connected series that we'll ever get in which the major stars don't live through the series. This will be the first one where the major young stars have to be replaced at movie 4 because the originals have died of lung cancer. But it hit theaters, and all of the Potter kids who are now old enough to go without their parents went to see it, and videos about it have been cropping up all over the place. I haven't seen it myself yet. I will probably see it in theaters, but I haven't done it yet. And I'm not. It's a little painful to watch Eddie Redmayne on the screen after a couple of movies that I've seen him in. It's I will do it. I'm sure. It seems like a charming movie. So, but it wasn't. It wasn't all mega events dominating BookTube. There were still BookTube videos, like for instance, Karen at Rather Be Reading did a bookshelf reorganization on camera. Always a thing that I love to watch. And also there were some book reviews that were worth noting. And nowadays, when you mention book reviews, you have to mention Chris from Reading Rhodes, because his book reviews have become amazingly good. They were good to start with, and now they've become just a textbook on how to do it. And he reviewed 2 science fiction novels that I had radically different reactions to myself. One was The Dragons of Dorcastle by Jack Campbell, and the other was Arabella of Mars by David Levine. His reviews of both of them were just top-notch. And in terms of book reviews, there was also one that was just so passionate I had to mention it. Ryan at For the Love of Ryan did a review of Once a Runner by John Parker, a cult novel about running that has been reprinted a couple of times, and it's had sequels, and his video does a wonderful job of capturing, of conveying some of the extent to which this novel is venerated in the runner community. It's well worth your time to watch. Also, I might point out something that, when he starts to talk about his own running stats in the video, I started to worry that maybe anybody coming to this thing who's not a runner is going to think they can't enjoy the book if they're not, and that's not true. Once a Runner is a very involving novel, no matter whether you run or not. And then Ben Sanders, on his channel, continued his series of newbie shoutouts, BookTube newbie shoutouts, where he finds brand new booktubers, some of whom have only dozens of subscribers, people who are just starting out, and introduces them on his channel, and doesn't just introduce them saying, here, follow the links, here's a new booktuber, let's welcome them. He also spends a little time describing them, analyzing what they do on their channel, and it's good I mentioned it on this channel before. It's as good a welcome mat as you could ever hope for. It made me wish, in a way, that somebody on BookTube would start doing channel reviews of BookTube channels. I think that'd be fascinating, except I'd be horrified if they did mine. So, well, what else have I got here? Oh yes, along the same lines as Ben's BookTube newbie shoutouts was Jen Campbell. She has a series of BookTubers I love, where she gives loving descriptions of a handful of BookTubers who've caught her fancy. It's a great series, worth watching, and then bookmarking everyone, because in BookTubers, as in books, her taste tends to be exquisite. And then Max at Well Done Books did a video that it's crossed my mind myself. He did a video called "BookTube Made Me Read It," about books that he has gravitated towards giving attention to solely because of BookTube, and might not have read otherwise. I think that's one of the more magical aspects of BookTube, this ongoing conversation of recommendation. So it was great to see that. It made me tempted to do such a video myself, because those titles are starting to rack up for me after almost a year. And then there was the Bookchemist. He did a video called a little longer than a week ago. He did a video about the life of a literature PhD student that was fanciful, to say the least. And he recently did a sort of companion video in which he tries to show you the reality of it. I'll try to link both videos. They're best watched back to back. I must confess that both, of course, the fantasy video and also the real life video didn't remind me at all of my time as a literature PhD student. I don't know if I was doing it right or wrong, one way or another. I suppose there are as many experiences of it as there are students of it. So, and then Emma at Emmmabooks did an eye-opening video on how booktubers make money. The different ways that booktubers can make money, whether through sponsored videos or AdSense or Patreon. I naturally found it just fascinating to know the bigger booktubers, the ones who are 100,000 subscribers or more, wonder how much money they make and whether or not it was on their mind when they started, and also the newer booktubers who are putting out great content, talking about books, having vigorous interactions with their subscribers, but who also have one eye on the money side of things, like the guys at Strip Cover Lit have said from the beginning that although their primary concern is passion with books, they have one eye on the money aspect of things. They'd like the channel to pay for itself, and quite a few of you have suggested, sort of vaguely, that I do a Patreon. And again, as I've said on this channel, I mentioned it a couple of times jokingly. I can't help but mention it jokingly. What would I do on a Patreon? What would I do on a Patreon that I don't do now? There isn't anything. The teenagers that I hang out with are constantly saying, "Dude, you gonna make money off your channel?" I don't know how I would do that. I honestly don't. Well, I mean, a couple of you have suggested, well, at least set up a Patreon account to cover your book mailing money. But what else do I spend my money on? Why would I need extra money to do that? I don't know. The whole subject of BookTube and money is interesting. And Emma is a great person to break it down. Her video is well worth watching. And of course, for me, the video that I want to end on, the one that struck me the most, was Maya Goode did a video called "Is Reading Critically a Double-Edged Sword?", in which she talks about some of the dangers involved in teaching yourself to learn to read critically. Dangers, in other words, represented by what happens when you turn those faculties onto books that you read uncritically and loved. Older books that you read maybe when you were younger and didn't read critically. What about the fear involved in returning to those books and seeing suddenly The Emperor's New Clothes, seeing suddenly that critically speaking they don't hold up at all. I naturally watched her video. It was just rapt attention from beginning to end because that's my whole world. I have long since made my peace with all of the double-edged sword aspects of reading things critically, and I think all the rest of you should too. There's no real better way to do it. Reading non-critically, just sort of getting all the feels and thinking about who you would date and who you would take to prom while you're reading a book, might be immediately gratifying, but it's a child's way of reading, and it's best abandoned to get the most, not only interest, but also enjoyment out of this thing that we all love. If a book cannot withstand a critical reading, well, that's the book's fault, not yours. But anyway, her video covers the subject just wonderfully, so you should go and watch it and then flood it with comments on your opinions, one way or another. But that was it. That was last week in BookTube, a kind of abbreviated version just for now. I'll get back on track doing these next week. But I wanted to make sure that I mentioned these because I found them all interesting. And I'll try to remember to leave the links down below. And I'll see you soon, BookTube. Thank you.